Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I am with Dr. Scott Walter. I am very late to the party. It is late at night on Thursday. It is exactly 1 week, I mean, almost to the minute since we started the whole iRobot or We Robot event in California. It's Thursday night. And yes, I know I should have talked about the robot, the Optimus walking up and down stairs and all of the cool stuff with Scott already. But I have a good excuse because I've actually been working on voice AI, which is part of what I want to talk about today. I was working on that all day long and teaching and everything. So I've been busy. So welcome, Scott. Thank you for joining me so
Okay,
late at
welcome.
night.
And what we're going to do here is at some point we're going to switch roles, and I'm going to become the host, and you're going to become the guest because this is basically like the fourth hot take I've had on that video. So I don't think it's a hot take anymore. And of course, everyone
It's
wants to
not,
know
it's a
what
cool take.
our reactions. At this point, if anyone
Right.
wants to know my reaction, you just go to Herbert's channel or go to Randy's channel, and you'll get my download.
Right.
So when it comes to
Right.
that point,
Right.
I believe it or not, I'm
Okay.
going to stay in the background and stay quiet and see what you pick out of the thing, and then we can talk about maybe some of the things so that's what we're going to do. But
All
the
right.
first thing,
All
as we
right.
talked about, is like,
But the
what was
first
our
thing is
reaction
we're going to
to
talk.
seeing Optimus live?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about this. So I'm cutting the sound out. I hate that I have to cut the sound out, but there was a DJ and there's a lot of music and stuff. But we're going to talk. So this was exactly when, well, a week ago, minus a couple of hours. So this was probably 10 o'clock at night, West Coast time. But anyway, the experience of actually interacting. This is just one short video. I played rock, paper, scissors. So we'll go ahead and play this. But you see, I'm playing rock, paper, scissors. He's waving, and then we do rock, paper, scissors, and it actually beats me.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you can't see that. I managed to. I think the my selfie, well, just wasn't holding it well. But anyway, it beat me, and it's very happy about that. And it was talking at the same time. Now, to be clear, this was teleoperated. This was not autonomous, and I think there's a really good reason for that, why it was teleoperated and not autonomous. But what I wanted to talk about just a minute, and my original plan for my video today was just to talk about this for the whole video, but what it's like to actually interact with a humanoid robot, because this is something you can see from my face. I'm a very happy camper here. So I'll ask you, Scott, and then I want to talk about my reaction. What was it like, to have it serve you drinks, to play rock, paper, scissors, to talk to it? What was the feeling like to actually have a humanoid bot like in your presence?
It was really cool and really natural. It wasn't unsetting or unsettling in any way.
Okay. Yeah.
And that I just felt that, okay, this is going to become a more and more common event, and it was all right.
Right.
And the fact that we weren't actually interacting with an LLM or something like that, that was kind of okay, because the idea was to to dip your toes in the water to get kind of a feel what it's like.
Right.
So Optimus is about 5'6", so it wasn't like intimidating that it was like, bigger or taller
Right.
than you. It moved very naturally. The movements were quite good. It was in, the voices obviously were whoever the voices of the, so we don't know what the
Yeah. Yeah.
eventual one is going
Yeah.
to be, but its head movement was actually very natural. And so that meant they did a very good job of modeling the kinematics of it, that you got a little bit of a feeling of
Right.
the emotion, and it was all right that you didn't have any eyes to stare into
Yeah.
or see anything like that. It was fine. You got enough emotion just kind of from the interaction that was there. So I felt comfortable around it. And I think
Right.
that's more important than people realize.
Yeah. And I think it is important, like I think 5'6" or 5, whatever. It was noticeably shorter than me, and I'm 5'10".
Yeah, I think it's five
I know
six. Yeah, I
you're
think it's.
taller.
Oh wait,
Yeah.
is it 5'6"? No, I think it's originally officially 5'8". So,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think
But
it's not
but anyway,
standing
I mean,
quite
I
that tall
noticed it was
because
shorter than me. Yeah. Yeah.
it's also because his knees were bent a
It's
bit more. So
right. Right.
probably if it straightened up, it would be 5'8", but it seemed like it was probably standing at about a 5'6" crouch.
Right. But, so people might discount that as being important, but it is important, because if this thing had been 8 feet tall, it would have been very intimidating, right? Just
Yes.
scale it would have been like, holy crap, there's a giant robot there. So the fact that it's, within the normal realms, standard deviation of humans,
It's 50th
sizes.
percentile is what it is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
50th
exactly.
percentile
Yeah.
U.S. North American male.
Right. And probably substantially less than that in terms of weight nowadays, because in terms of body mass and
Yeah,
stuff, we don't know
that's
exactly what it
true.
weighs, but the look, no, but I'm saying, it's also not really big and
It's
bulky. It
it,
looked
it's
like
probably
something
somewhere in the
where
order
I
of
could.
100, 130, 140 pounds. So I guess you would say that
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
probably lighter than most people. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, but that's an important factor because it's important to understand that interacting with this felt very comfortable. Again, I kind of thought that there would be an uncanny valley. This was something that has happened in computer animation. You know, you think about the
Oh,
Polar Express where that was creepy as hell. This was not creepy. It was really fun. And you could see how it's, you know, it's slow. It's certainly not, you know, making fast, violent motions, but it's, you know, it's able to do that. It's able to wave and it's able to give itself you know, a high five because it's happy or whatever. So you know, there's a lot of stuff there that just made me feel comfortable, and it didn't take any time at all. It was like, oh crap, there's an Optimus. You walk up to it, you start interacting with it, and it's immediately incredibly natural. It did not feel at all like, whoa, you know, I'm going to have to adjust to this new reality. It was like, no, this is great. I love it. I want one. When can I order one
right,
for my house? You know, that was
right.
the feeling that I had.
And
Yeah.
when it comes to wading into the waters, um, this was actually been asked to me a few times in different spaces and stuff like that. It's like, well, when we went to the cab together, didn't we freak out the fact that there was no steering wheel in there? The idea it was like
Right.
going off by
Right.
itself, and it was like, no, it didn't bother me, it didn't bother you, and that's because we're so used to FSD.
Right.
It's yeah, there's
Right.
steering wheel in there for all intents and purposes. It doesn't have to, and we had so much
Right.
confidence. It's only after the fact when someone mentioned that it's like, yeah, I guess it should have been unsettling, but it wasn't. And it's sort of the same feeling with this.
Yeah.
Is like Optimus should
Yeah.
have been unsettling, but it wasn't. It was more like,
Right.
ah, man, I'm really excited. Can I go ahead and meet him? And I was observing
Right.
Optimus. As you can see, you have everyone with the orange lanyards around there. They
Mhm.
basically were
Mhm.
kind of like the security apparatus for it, basically to make
Yeah.
sure if anything went wrong, and also that people didn't get too close or do some kind of interaction. So they were there for
Right.
safety and security reasons. And at
Yeah.
one point, one of them just said, "All right, you want to interact with it?" And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, what?" Suddenly, I get picked, and I was like, I wasn't expecting that. I was like, "Oh, what do I do now?" And so I had to come up
Right.
with something
Exactly.
to figure out what the interaction was. So I was kind of caught a little bit off guard on that, but really happy to have that kind of that opportunity. And of course, at one point, I'm trying to like monopolize all things. Oh yeah, I guess I have to let other people use it too.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I felt bad. And the rock, paper, scissors was something somebody else was doing before me. So I copied that because I was like, well, I know it'll do that.
It
But I don't
seems to
have
be a
this on
big
this
thing because
video.
1X does that.
Yeah.
It seems like all the humanoid bots are
Oh,
going through
interesting.
that, and
Yeah.
I tried
Yeah.
to come up with something different. And the thing I came up with, and I finally got the video from Kenneth, and he did it on an Apple, and I can't play it because I don't have the right, you know.
Just send it to me. I'll fix it for you.
Send it to you. But anyways, what I was thinking was just like, oh, okay, I wanted Optimus to touch his nose.
His
And of course,
nose.
I was
Right.
expecting
Right.
Optimus to
Right.
say,
Right.
"But I don't have a nose," you know. And so,
Yeah.
but the teleoperator did. And so I think the teleoperator tried to and could only get about that close. Couldn't really touch the nose. And it came
Right.
down to that it was saying it was like unsafe. It couldn't do it. And I think what was
Yeah.
happening is it was actually getting a range error. And the range error wasn't that it was
Right.
like going to a location that's not supposed to. I think the elbow, because from the video that I could see, is the elbow joint was locking up because it was down too low. So it was attempting to touch
Right.
its nose from like a lower position rather than a higher position. So if you get your elbow up, you're
Right.
able to get that range of
Yeah.
motion that you need. And that means whatever motion capture they're doing is not capturing the position of the elbow. It might just
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
tracking the wrist and then coming up with that solution. And then Optimus goes for the wrong one to try to go for the nose. So that was the only thing
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out in the range of motion that was rather
Yeah.
interesting.
Or it's also possible that you have I mean, you know, a reasonably flexible human operator can go like this. Like, so, you know, it
Yeah,
just could
yeah,
be
yeah,
that
they could.
it was,
It
yeah.
could,
So,
but it was out of the range. The shoulder was going into the wrong
right.
position to allow that to go, and so it
Yeah.
looked like the
Yeah.
elbow was pretty close to its limit.
Right. So there was a lot of disappointment in the fact that it was teleoperated during these moments. Now, we're going to look at the other video of Optimus serving people drinks, and it's
Mhm.
possible that the one that was behind the bar was actually autonomous. But anyway,
And I
the
think
I
the
want to
video
make
coming
yeah,
up, we will be able to see that. I think I
right.
see how they did it.
Yeah, but I do want to make a point of this that probably Optimus can do all this stuff autonomously. But remember, we have an uncontrolled crowd of I think 2,500 people surrounding this thing. They probably did not want to take a chance of having it freak out, fall down, having somebody push it, and having it react. They really didn't want an incident. They did not want an incident of
Yes,
a Tesla bot pushing somebody over.
and
So,
there evidently there was one case that the Tesla bot fell over and
oh
something happened.
no,
It got caught in a handbag. So someone got too
Oh,
close,
no.
and their
Yeah.
purse kind of
Yeah.
caught. So it's like Optimus got hit with a lady's handbag or something like
Right.
that. That was the only
Right.
reason. And
Right.
that's what the shepherds around there were trying to prevent, to make sure something like
Exactly.
that didn't happen.
Exactly.
And those are the kind of snags and everything
Right.
else you have to worry about. But that was the
Right.
only event that was reported by Milan, as he gave a kind of a summary of the whole thing. And the other thing about that, the telerobot teleoperation, is that Dar
Right.
from 1X put out a post today where he praised the whole thing and told everyone that's talking about, the teleoperation. He says, really, you're doing a disservice about that and complaining that it should have been fully autonomous, because you don't realize what you have to
Right.
do with the data, and that they were extremely courageous to not only have
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
Optimus amongst the crowd, but so many, and have so many of them walk out
Right.
together. So it's like,
Right.
whoa, here's a competition over there praising the whole thing, when they, he could
Yeah.
also been
Yeah.
throwing shade as well. So I think it's very
Right.
important when you look at it from that perspective of a competitor actually being
Right.
very impressed and not being afraid to say he
Yeah.
was impressed, and what were the reasons why, and why teleoperation was fine with him. And it should not
Yeah.
be some sort of way of saying that, oh, they're way behind us or something like that. It's like, nope, that's
Yeah.
the way you got to go for a while to get the data. And
Right.
eventually you'll have the data. And this, he
Well,
thinks there was a treasure trove of data that they got today. They got from that event.
oh, yeah, that's true. That is true.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
very true. A couple things. We need in our discussion about the RoboCab, and then I did a follow-up video about that, the Cybercab. I mentioned the fact that we had a live demo, and the fact that it was so uneventful and boring was a hugely important thing. People don't understand live demos go wrong. This thing, like a year ago, it had a tether hanging itself up to make sure it didn't fall over, and now they have enough confidence that they have this thing out in
Mhm,
public,
mhm,
you know,
mhm. Yeah,
in an
exactly.
uncontrolled environment. There's no ropes around it. It's just like people wandering around. Yeah, they had shepherds and stuff, but geez, this is
Yeah, but the shepherds could have
incredibly
bumped into it. I mean,
impressive.
there was,
Yeah.
they allowed you to get pretty close. I think some people may have done a couple of fist bumps or something like that. And
Yeah, I did.
and
I
I get,
actually touched it. Like, when I did a
yeah,
fist bump, and it went boop, it touched it. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Um, yeah.
and we're going to learn a little bit more about the fist bump coming up in a second.
Right. So speaking of that, let us transition over here now. But so I think we've talked about it a lot, but it's important to understand. I think people were. I have to say I was a little disappointed about the showmanship and stuff, but on reflection, as I thought about the event more and more, I became more and more impressed. Because again, this was a live demo. This was something that was crazy risky for them to do, having actual robots out here without protection around it, interacting with people in an uncontrolled environment in the dark with flashing lights and music and everything playing. That's a crazy environment. So yeah. So with that
Yep.
being said, let us turn to this way. Let us turn to the Optimus bot. This is the video that dropped today from Tesla. I think around 7 or 8 o'clock this morning, right? So I'm way behind. So walking, we're just going to play the whole thing first. Exploring
Mhm.
unseen places, exactly like FSD. Avoiding people and obstacles, exactly like FSD. Running on one computer network, like FSD. Very cool that they're showing some of the way that it's capturing the environment. This is cool, just like FSD. It's using multiple bots to map a space. So that's really cool. And then, of course, I love this. We finally found out where the hell the thing's charge port is.
Exactly.
And the fact that it looks like
Exactly.
a Tesla charger, which is super cool. And this is great too. I mean, this
Ye-
is 11
Yep.
kilos, right? This is pretty heavy.
Yes. About
So,
25
yeah,
pounds.
yeah. So, and that's a balance shift when you pick something like that up. And you can see how it's walking a little more awkwardly. So, and it says not overheating, which is important too. You don't think about that, but of course, it's using the actuators a lot. And then, of course, we've
Finally
got
stairs.
um, stairs. We've got it now handing people, and this says autonomous 2x, so it is autonomous. It's twice the speed, but it is
Yep.
specifically says up there in the corner that it's autonomous. So again, the drink bot may have been autonomous. I don't know. So
Yeah, we can
I'm
talk a little bit
very
about
cool.
that. Yep. Um,
Yep.
my suspicion is that it was
Right.
supervised autonomy, is the way I want to call it. Is
Okay.
that
Yeah. So
more
that
than likely
somebody
that,
could have come in and stopped it if they needed to. Yeah.
yeah, basically it was observing it and probably having the conversation like a normal bartender would, but allowing Optimus to
Yeah.
do most of it. And it may have been
Right.
that it was also using the body language for it. So Which chapter do
Right.
you want to go? I mean, we can start here
Yeah.
and
You
rewind.
know, I don't have a picture of it, but the bot that was serving drinks had a cowboy hat on, which is also
Hmm.
pretty crazy too. Because if you think about the sight lines in the head,
Yeah.
that a hat really messes up your sight lines, and so it's pretty cool that we actually that it was able to do
Yeah,
that.
they
You know, it was
had to
able
make
to
sure
pick up
it was
that.
above the cameras, and it was also wearing an
But, you know,
outfit, and the outfit had to have ventilation in there, holes in it for
yeah,
the
yeah,
ventilation, so it wouldn't overheat.
right.
Now, the one thing here is that because this is an autonomous mode, it's a little bit different. When you do the fist bump,
Yeah,
the operator
yeah,
sort of decided, okay, I'm going to take the risk and go ahead and do it and go that. Now
right.
here, you can see that the first thing the
I think
human
it's
wants to
way
do
back
is
at
a
the
fist bump.
beginning. Yeah,
He wants to do a
right,
fist
he wants
bump,
to do a
and
high five.
Optimus refuses to do it,
Yeah,
refuses to do it, and
right there.
then gives him
It's
the
like,
finger
"No.
wag. No, 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 no. And it
No,
says
no,
right in the
no, no."
bottom, and can react to unsafe situations. That's
Right,
considered
right.
unsafe. A little bit further in
Yeah,
this autonomy, it's very interesting. So here's my theory: is that
right.
early versions of FSD they recognized pedestrians, but they freaked out when they saw pedestrians because they're always afraid they were going to run into them.
Mhm.
Later
Right,
versions seem to be able to look at the intent and figure out whether the pedestrian really was a potential threat to the car or not, almost like it's getting an idea of understanding body language and everything else. So
right,
here you're
right.
you're having Optimus reading body language. You don't say what you want, you just kind of point to it or indicate it, and it's able to figure that
Yeah,
out. So I have a feeling it may be sort of the same behaviors that they've been able to work out there that they're implementing, and it
right.
goes ahead and does it. The next thing you'll notice is that when Optimus picks up the bottle, the handoff here
Yeah,
is
he
incredibly
doesn't say
quick.
anything. Yeah,
He doesn't say anything, but when the bottle gets picked
right,
up,
but it's that's what
notice
I'm saying.
that
So, anyway, I'm just saying the unsafe
right,
behavior thing. It's
but
reading, yeah,
right here,
that's
but
nice.
look what's going to happen when he
Yeah.
goes to grab the bottle gets released by Optimus like
Oh.
instantly. As
Oh,
Optimus
yeah,
doesn't
I
even
see
wait for the
that.
tug. It seems to be more of a visual thing. It says,
Right.
I think you've got it. It's like Optimus
Let's see if we can go
does
back.
not want to be connected to the person for too long,
Yes.
if at all. So
Yes.
the bottle almost falls out of his hand when the human goes ahead and picks it. So it's really
Right.
interesting that they want to make sure that the bot to human interactions are extremely safe there.
Yep, you could see it. It
Almost
actually
falls.
dropped it right as he's
It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
quick. And to me, it means it's more of a vision thing there than it is feeling force. It's not even waiting for the tug. You
Right.
and I would wait for the tug. When I hand you the bottle, when as soon as I feel you tugging on it, then I'll release.
Exactly.
Otherwise, I know I'm
Here
going to
you can
drop it.
see right, here you can see a little bit better interaction in terms of it holds on until he actually grabs the bag, and then
Yes,
let's go. But it's very,
but
very
it's
fast.
still very quick.
So it's
And now
yeah.
there's a
Well, what
couple of
it
things
doesn't
here.
wanna hold on and be pulled, if the person pulls it away, then you're gonna, like, fall
Exactly.
over. So,
That's
yeah,
what it's
exactly.
trying to avoid. But the other thing is that not only does it react and say open up the fingers actually open up pretty quick for things that are at that point the opening is being done by a spring. So it has to get
Right.
the tension off that really quickly. And I don't think
Yeah.
those are sheath
That's
tendons. So it's basically spring loading, just popping that thing open really quickly.
right, right. And yeah, of course, these are Gen 2 hands, so no matter what Gen 3 is, these are spring loaded for sure.
Yep.
So
Yep.
these are the older hands. But, look how happy he is. I love that he's, like, so happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, but, like, he points to it and then it figures out what he wants, which is great.
Mhm.
So it's reading body language. Um, Unclear whether it can talk at this point. Certainly that's coming. I know Elon has said something about that, but it's unclear if it can do that now, but it can certainly at least react to what people are pointing at. So and to unsafe motion and stuff like that. So, and then single neural network. So again, that's an important factor too, is the neural network and running in real
Mhm.
time on the embedded computer. So all of this stuff, again, the interesting part about this is for those of us familiar with full self-driving, it's like, oh yeah, this is what the car does too. But it's a completely different form factor, right? This is,
Yes.
this is
Yes.
a bot. It's walking. It has to control a body, not just a couple of car controls like steering wheel and brake and accelerator. So it's
Mhm.
much more complicated. So, what did you think when you saw so we'll just start with this part since we've been talking about it, but what did you think about this part right here,
Oh, I
like,
mean,
in terms of
it's the same
reaction?
thing. It's basically what I thought is like, the reaction time, the fact that it's Optimus is very concerned about interacting too closely with humans. The reading of the body language is
Mhm.
impressive. And it'll be something else when you start to throw the
Yeah,
LLM in and be able to tell it what you
right.
want. So my suspicion is that looking at that, uh, probably the bartending was supervised autonomy. really think there was a lot of autonomy, and there was just some there to make sure the interactions were safe. And
Right.
but the picking up the beers, the pouring of beers, that was probably already set up that way. So it already
Yeah.
knew how to do
Yeah.
it.
Right. Right. And clearly it can do this, but I mean, that gives you like, there's an initial non-factory use case right now. Not a complicated bartender making a really complex drink, but just a bartender that can give you a beer or a water or something at a cocktail party or
Oh,
something, right? So,
yeah. There's all sorts of situations where it could be there, and I am sure that there are many that would, and many people that would pay for the novelty of having it there. As a matter of fact,
oh gosh, yes.
we've
Oh
already
my
heard
gosh.
there are some celebrities that have approached some of the different humanoid bot companies and asked, "Can you have
Mm,
it come over and serve cocktails?" The answer was like,
mm,
"Unfortunately, not right now because
yeah,
it's not really
right.
certified for that."
Yeah,
So
yeah,
as soon as you have that, guaranteed, every Hollywood party is going to have a humanoid bot
right,
or two
right.
there just doing something like this for the novelty of it. So you could
Yeah,
almost make a living just on that
yeah,
application alone. And then of course
yeah,
not just there is it starts to come into a lot of big cities. You can imagine the novelty of a lot of bartenders. You can set it up that it's basically just right there. It doesn't have to move around very much. It can probably do bartending.
yeah,
It's ready to go. It's just making
yeah,
sure that the LLM and everything is kind of set up to be able to do that interaction.
right. Yeah. Okay. So let's rewind to the beginning and let's talk about walking. So this is a big bugaboo for you. I know you've been complaining about the speed and everything. This does not say 2x. This is 1x speed. So
That's 1x. I counted steps again. It's the same
now
speed.
it's 2x. Now it's 2x.
It's
So it's okay. So
it,
same
it,
speed, but
it's
it says
it's
more
still faster.
confident.
It's right. It's still faster. It's still a little bit over a mile per hour. I
Right.
have the math if you want to check my work. The main thing is the
Yeah.
first thing it says is that it works more confidently. Okay.
Yeah.
And let's say, does Optimus walk more confidently? In other words, is Optimus confident, or does it imbue
Right.
confidence in others? And I think what it did is it imbued confidence in everyone else to say, "Hey, you know what? We can take it to this really big cocktail party on 1010, have it mingle amongst the people,
Right.
and
Yeah.
not be afraid
Yeah.
of it
There you go.
falling over unless someone
Yeah.
hits it with a handbag." Okay, that's about it.
Yeah. And I
So,
I like the little this is again just like full self-driving. When you do
yep.
expanded visualization, you get this little corner thing, but you can see the bot with its nose, so you know which direction it's facing and its trajectory path. So as you watch this, let's go back. As it walks
You can see
around,
what's
you can
going
see
on,
it's
and
projecting
also
its
look what it's
trajectory,
it's
going
walking
around
past.
people. Yeah,
What
it
is
sees
it
the
walking
people.
past? Do you notice what it's walking
Oh,
past
what
there,
was
John?
that? Was that pallets of
What
uh
what is the human doing?
looks like he's stacking batteries. So I think, yeah, and
Yes,
aren't these battery trays? So yeah, there we go.
doing
So
the exact same thing that Optimus does.
right, right.
And now this is
I
in a clean room environment. You can see all the
mhm.
mask and hairnetting and footwear everyone has in there.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that's
you're
the reason
right.
why it's
Interesting.
not COVID restrictions or anything like that. We're well past
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
If it was COVID
right.
restrictions, it means this thing is like 2 years old or 3 years old, something like that.
That would be even
Uh,
more impressive.
yeah, it's like, wow, even more amazing. Yeah. Time travel. Uh,
So,
so
but,
that's part
you
of the
can see the little
reason
green
for it.
dots are its projection of the
Yes.
world, its 3D world via its camera. So,
Yes. And
um,
so it's finding reference locations based on different features that it can identify them. And I've used the
right.
analogy, it's basically celestial navigation, that each one of
Mhm,
them is like a
mhm.
star in the sky. They
Yep,
form these different clusters or constellations that are very easy to recognize. So when you come into a particular room, all you have to do is like kind of find a pattern you recognize, line up with a couple of stars, and you know where you are. You can navigate through that.
right.
And then the other thing, of course,
Yeah,
is that our star charts were not built by one person. They were built over
yeah.
centuries by different people of mariners
Which
going out there and
we get
recording it.
to
You had those
right
in the
after that,
northern hemisphere,
right
those in the
there.
southern hemisphere. And when they noticed an overlap between some of the constellations, they kind of put them together and you were able to complete the entire map. It's the same thing that's
Right,
happening here.
which exactly what yeah, exactly. Much faster. The other thing that I wanna mention here is this I have not seen this with Tesla's Autopilot or Full Self-Driving in years, but this gives me an indication that they may still be doing some sort of, feature mapping or something as the cars drive.
Yeah, there
They
may
may be
be. And
looking for
that's what a lot of
exploits,
people
so, yeah.
wondered is that would there be sharing between the cars on what the
Oh,
environment is
there
like?
absolutely There absolutely is. They've already talked about that, but I haven't seen this specific feature mapping. This is a
Mhm.
three-dimensional space much more than the car drives in. A car kind of drives
Yep.
in a 2D space, even though it's in a 3D world because it's flat. But this, it matters much more how tall the ceiling is because you might hit it if it shrinks too much. So,
Mhm. Oh,
so
yeah, yeah.
anyway,
There are
but
definitely
but
situations
yeah.
to be careful that you ducking, stepping over items, there's a lot of things, so
Mhm.
it needs to navigate, it needs to be able to figure out what's static and what's dynamic.
Right. So
So
anyway,
that's
it's
gonna
it's
be
unclear whether this is different from full self-driving, but full self-driving, the likelihood given what we're seeing here is that full self-driving does some of this as well, some star charting,
mhm,
which would make sense. It needs to know where the curb is. It and we've seen the volumetric what was that called? Displacement mapping? No, occupancy networks, right? So they had
right.
some occupancy networks for a while, but it may have morphed into something like this instead. This would have been where they would have started, but it would have been hard coded, like really, really like a lot of code to tell it like edge detection, things like that. Now it's doing it with a neural network, which is very, very cool. So a little bit geeky, but very cool. And you notice these are pretty good. They're pretty solid. They're not
And the
flickering
other
too
thing
much.
is if you see there the cameraman, because the
Uh-huh.
cameraman does not have a rear view camera, needs an
Yes.
assistant to make sure he's not backing into anything. So
Right, right.
rather than just watch the film crew. So it's like assistant's like,
So
okay,
the
you can still step back, you can still step back.
so Optimus has actually got an advantage over humans because it has that rear view
Yes,
mirror where it can
yes,
a rear view
exactly. You
camera
don't
where it
need the
can
assistant.
see.
Y-
Yeah, and it's very cool. I love the little charging thing. So it looks just like a Tesla charging port. Where was that again?
Yeah, so that's going to
Was
be
that back at
coming
the
up.
beginning or
I
the
think it's a chapter probably.
yeah,
Okay,
there.
so
Yeah,
right there. Now, the interesting thing to
right here.
look at that is it's
But it
almost
looks just
like
like a Tesla
um,
charging port. It's very cool.
it's
I
also like a
like it.
code
Looks just
hook.
like I'd have it home.
So two things. So it
Yeah.
looks like
Well, I
it.
mean, it can it
Now
can
I'm
it can
sure.
hang on it, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you install that, you need to install it at the proper height. But you should be able to install it anywhere.
Yes. Right.
And it's probably just using normal power. And so it's not that hard. And you
Right.
see, it's not that obtrusive. So it's very easy because Optimus is
No.
just a
No.
few
No.
steps away from
No
what's
worse than
working. So if it
no worse
needs
than
to
the
get
other
that
ones.
break, it can go over
So
there. It's
oh
it's a
dear.
little bit of
What did I do?
a code hook there,
Lost
probably to
sorry about
suspend
that.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's probably to
yeah,
suspend it to make sure that if power goes out for some reason, it's just able to hang there
right,
and take it off.
yeah,
And we're able to get kind of a close up of what that sort of receptacle looks like to go in there, how it plugs in. It's a little bit cut off there, but I
I
did
love
kind of
this
a
view
close up
here,
on it,
this is great.
and it looks a little bit like this. Okay, so if you remember your old thumb drives,
Yeah,
you had something like that. You'll look. I think you're going to go back a couple of frames. You'll
okay.
see
It's a
what almost
little
looks
hard to
like
do that with
two of them on different sides. I think there's like only three versus four that are on here, but it looks an awful lot like that. Like they put a couple of little thumb drives together, a couple other different contact points, and then made the thing
right,
rigid, and so that it's very easy to slip into Optimus and also hold it up. So I think you've
right,
got to go a frame or two back and you get a little bit of a image on there. And there's a certain amount of precision, which means the reverse camera has to be there.
oh, there we go.
And I think I joked
Yeah,
earlier
right there.
today that as a result of that, the fact that Optimus is able to automatically park itself means Optimus has
Right.
ass.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, those look like exposed, contacts, but
Yeah, yeah,
it is also
exactly,
possible
exactly. It's
like
like if I
that
put two of these
yeah,
kind of next to each other and put some plastic in
yeah,
there and a couple other things, it
yeah.
looks very much like that.
Right. But I was gonna say the other thing is it does give it a little bit of a visual. As it's backing up, it can see those 4 dots would be great for registration to know exactly where it was so it
Yeah,
could back into the right spot.
which
So,
is
yeah,
interesting. I'm surprised they didn't do it like you would see on the ISS and stuff like that when they have the grapple hooks going out there for the the robotic arm, or when the Hubble Space Telescope. They always had this thing that the camera was looking at that gave you a reference location to know that you're moving into the
exactly.
grapple fixture just right. And here it's
Right.
like they're not doing that. I don't think there's any barcode or anything else that's a reference on there.
No,
They're just saying, "Oh, just
no.
find the edges on the top part of that thing, and that's more than enough to register its location, so we can go ahead and dock."
Yeah. And you can see a little bit of a view right here, like, for a while that shows it its view, and it's got the edge points and stuff like that. It
Yeah,
doesn't show the back, but it shows this nice little, like,
yeah, and what you're seeing in
well,
the
actually
bottom one there is the entire charger, not just the receptacle that's going
yes.
up, but it's showing the whole
Exactly.
top of that base, and so it knows where it's going. The other thing to notice is that the LED around his face is red, meaning it needs to
Oh,
charge.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
low state of
yeah, there we
charge.
go. Right.
And the thing is,
So
we have to
these are as
learn
we
what the conditions are. Yeah, red
right.
would be that.
Well, we
White is probably
theorized about
operational.
this before.
Right. There could be
Yeah.
another color for teleoperation, which
Yeah. Yeah, so there's
we have to look at
white,
that.
and let's see, it's white there, so it's autonomous, red there. Yeah, I know it's been blue at points, so, it looks like it's all white, so I'm wondering if teleoperation is blue in that case.
It could be. It could
But
be
yeah,
that.
yeah, so but this is great because this gives you a quick nonverbal cue. As soon as you look at the bot, you'll know operational, needs charging, error, whatever, you could be able to look at it immediately and be able to tell like from the light
What the
status.
mode
So
of
pretty cool.
operation exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now the
I
next
want to talk about
interesting
this
thing is
again. Well, I don't want to talk about
okay.
this. Just I want to back up just a sec since we skipped it. So the important part about this is that the bots work together. So as a bot walks through a space, it like maps it. As another one maybe walks through at a perpendicular angle, it maps it again. And as another one comes through, it maps it again. And together they just collectively create a reasonably high definition map of the
Correct.
area. Yeah,
Correct.
which means they've
And what
got
ends up
better and
happening
better
is
and better.
eventually they realize that they've maybe crossed a common landmark here or there. And just by
Mhm.
taking those two landmarks and then lining them up, you
Right.
can now expand the map because I'll take your map, just
Yeah.
like we talked about before. You have a map of the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, and you just got to
Right.
figure out, well, which stars are
Or
in
the
common
crossover.
between the two, and boom,
Yeah.
okay, now we have the whole thing.
Right. So this is important because this is something that humans can't do. Like I can't go, Scott, I've driven around, this particular street. I can't just like mind meld into you and say, this is how this street operates, or this is how this
At
house
least
looks
not
or
yet.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be weird. I don't know if I'll want that or not, but anyway. But this is something that bots can do. They can share this information very, very easily, or at least straightforwardly. I'm sure it wasn't easy to do this,
Mhm.
but anyway. Okay, so moving on, as you were talking about charging, and then okay, so now after he's
So now it
happy and he's
returns to
got some
work.
charge, yep. Now it's time to put some batteries in trays.
Yep.
So this is
And
cool too. I
now,
like this view on the right.
remember, I always
Yeah,
said, what happens to the tray afterwards? That was always a
right.
mystery.
And
What happens
now
to the tray
well,
afterwards?
this
Now,
is what
they're actually
happens to it.
making it harder on Optimus because if we go back to where the human operator was doing this, we will notice the
Mhm.
table he's putting it on is actually a dolly, so he can push it around.
Oh yeah,
You see,
yeah, yeah.
there's
You're right.
wheels on that. So I think when he's done, he just kind
Yeah,
of pushes it where it needs to be. But Optimus
right.
looks like, oh, you got to pick this thing up.
Yeah.
And now,
Well, I
John, I
mean, it's
want you
good
to
practice for
discuss
it.
the ergonomics of this being picked up. Look at what's going on and
Oh, I have a feeling it's
you
probably
do
not
that.
great. Oh, no,
Now
it
take a
ain't
look.
well, it took a second.
It's pretty quick, but now look at that. Now,
Huh,
for you,
interesting.
you're not having any problem thinking about this because you're a rock climber
Yeah,
and you have a
right,
lot of
right,
finger grip and strength and forearm strength. But think about that
right.
for a second. That that tote doesn't have a good handle to grab.
No, it does not.
That is literally being held by the fingertips on both sides. And think
Yeah,
about what you have
yeah,
to do when you do that movement is that you have to be applying a lot of pressure on both sides. It has to be locked in. So not only do the
yes.
fingers grips have to have strength to make sure that they're not failing, the wrist needs a lot of strength because you're pushing in and your shoulder
Yeah,
has to do it. So
yeah.
I want you to
Mhm.
imagine, if you imagine that yourself, you will feel that it's like, that's hard. That's not how I
Yeah,
want to do it.
yeah,
And if you did do it, you're basically doing isometric exercises, right? When you're
yeah.
done, you're going to go,
Well, I
oh,
also I
that
also
was
don't wanna do
good
it with
work.
my fingers with my wrist in this position, that would be very painful.
That's
Yeah,
going
I
to
would
hurt.
want to have
But
my
at the
wrist
same
to be
time,
straight.
you're
Yeah, yeah,
you're you're pushing in as well. And look at the
yeah.
fingers are not straight. The fingers are curled a little bit. So that means
No,
there's some grip
no,
strength there to be able to get it. You and
yeah,
I would try
yeah,
to grab that from underneath because that would be a lot easier. So you may say
mhm,
ergonomically that's not very good, but what we should look at is like, wow, it's able to actually apply a decent amount of force to do something like that. And when it
yeah,
walked
yeah,
over, if it just slipped a little bit, if like one arm decided to relax just a
yeah,
second,
it's like
then that
yeah,
whole thing is toppling down. It's not holding in there.
yeah,
So it has to make sure the pressure. So that's showing coordination between the two arms to be able to do a
right.
trick like that.
So this is at 2x speed here, but look how fast it grabs it when it grabs it.
Yeah,
It
it's
just goes
pretty quick.
bink.
It it
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
it's reasonably quick.
it just goes bink. It just
It's
it grabs
away
it.
from there
Yeah,
pretty quick.
yeah,
And when it
yeah.
approaches the other side, it takes a couple of stutter steps, but not as many as all the others. So it's
Mhm.
much better on its approach when it finally gets there. It does a little bit of adjustment, but not too much. It's like, ah, okay, I'm kind of there.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I think it's actually very nice. I mean, I think that's, walk,
Remember, that's
walk, walk, walk,
25
walk.
pounds.
Yeah, yeah. And the interesting thing is at 2x speed, this looks completely human. Like, not exactly, but it looks like human speed. So
It
basically the
it
robot is operating at half the speed it needs to be
half the
operating
speed,
at.
yes. The
More or
walking
less.
speed is about half of a human speed. So that's why when
Yeah.
it's 2x, it looks like it's normal.
Right. I think this without overheating is an important point. This is something that probably none of the rest of us, except for you maybe, would have thought about. But of course, these actuators, they're having to work really hard to hold this thing. There's a
All
lot
of
of
them.
energy being
Exactly.
expended, and it's having to walk, and so it's not over, and it's an isometric thing. So it's the whatever the motors are doing, the actuators are locked into
They're
position and
locked
probably
in.
have
They're
to
not
drain
moving.
back
They're
and forth.
they're locked
Yeah,
in. Yeah, exactly. And then there's
yeah,
the other thing is that that's a very awkward stance that you're in, and you're now having
right,
to walk and
right.
maintain balance. So again, it's
Hmm.
like the center of
Yeah,
gravity and everything's thrown off. You need to be able to walk over there
right.
confidently to figure it out. And that's
Yeah,
one thing I should probably go back is see if I can count the number of steps that it took and what the time is, even at 2x, to see if the walking
yeah,
speed is the same as unloaded. Because a lot of times
right.
when you're loaded, you're going to be going a lot slower.
Yeah. I wanna make a note of this. You can immediately see I know this from, like, teaching animation for so many years. If you look at the center of gravity, which kind of goes right through the middle of the body, it's back way over the heels, but that's because we've added 25 pounds or 11 kilos to
Yes,
him.
yeah, up
So
front,
we've
exactly.
we've shifted it forward, so he's having to lean backwards. I'm exaggerating, but, he's leaning
Mhm.
backwards like this to compensate for this extra weight. So it's very cool to
You
see
want yeah,
how
you
it's
want the center of
compensating.
pressure on your feet to be between the heel and the toe. That if it
Exactly,
starts to
and
go too
so
much back to the heel, then you risk kind of toppling over. So you do have a
right.
static margin in there. That's okay, which is
Mhm.
why you want to have a decent sized foot. But at the
Yeah,
same time, you don't have that much room for adjustment, and
right.
seems to walk
Yeah.
confidently. What we haven't
Yeah,
seen
no, that's
are
great.
where they try pushing Optimus over. I assume they've done all those things
Right, but
to get
we
an
haven't
idea.
seen that.
Yeah, we
It's
haven't seen
interesting.
it, but I and Chris, the other thing is, you notice when it dropped that tray on there, it exactly lined
Yeah.
up with the edge. It was like, I wonder if that was coincidental, but like, whoop,
Oh, man, look at
right,
that. That's
it's
perfect.
like
Yeah,
right
what
on
is
there.
that?
It's not in the center. It's like got it right over the edge of the table.
No,
Yeah.
it's like yeah, it's like so it could be, well, that's interesting. That means it might have more precision than a human under circumstances like that in terms of, like, this is exactly where I'm gonna place this,
Could
so
just be coincidental.
interesting.
Of course, someone would say, well, what
Yeah.
it really should have done is dead center in the middle of the table rather than lining up the
Yeah.
edge.
While we were talking about that, now watch. So you're gonna see it. It's leaning back, and as soon as it drops it, it pops back up. So notice how it shifts its center of gravity as it drops the tray. Here, 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 boop, and you see how the body kinda
Yep.
went up it
Suddenly
rocked
stood straight
upright
up.
immediately
Yep.
afterwards. Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, this is cool stuff because I teach this in animation all the time, and just to see it actually happening in reality with the robot is very cool. So, yeah, so it's immediately standing much more straight up as soon as it drops that 25 kilos. Alright, let's talk stairs. Stairs. New stuff.
There's finally.
And mapping stairs, very cool. Okay, that was very short, but what do you think about stairs?
It's about time. I've been wanting to see it go upstairs in uneven terrain for quite a while because we hadn't seen it. Certainly,
Yeah,
we see the Chinese bots. They have quite the obstacle courses that has to go up.
right. Right.
You know, if I assume they must be training on some really rough terrain. I would hope
Yeah,
so. In which case, stairs have become very simple. Or they might be saying, "Look,
yeah,
we're not going to be sending it out into the jungle or anything like that. We just have
right.
uh, flat floors and we have stairs, and we want to focus
Yeah,
on that because once we nail that, then it's going to be ready to be used in the factory. But the idea that it's going to be
right.
climbing over a junk pile of stones or of wood or anything like that, we're not there
Yeah.
yet. We don't need to be there yet because you shouldn't have something like that on the factory floor.
Right. Right. Uh, yes, exactly. I mean, you could make an argument for the fact that it's not necessary yet, and all those like slippy, slidey things are. But interestingly, there is like a obvious like those yellow markers, which is pretty standard for factory type stairs, so
Oh, yeah.
you can see
Yeah,
them
yeah,
well,
yeah. So
high
it's
visibility. But it is not using handles. I think
yep,
most humans,
exactly.
many humans at least, would use the rails and kind of help themselves to make sure you didn't fall over. But it does not do that. So interestingly enough, it decides against that, which is fine. But it's also very confident going up these stairs. I
Mhm.
mean, it's not
And it's making
fast,
sure that its
but
feet don't get, snagged going up as well. So the back
exactly.
kick is a little
Yeah.
bit different than walking. So it's not like
Right.
it's taking the same normal gait. The gait has changed a little bit because it does have to pick it up, and you'll notice
Right.
that the foot takes a very different angle than when it's walking on a flat surface. So it makes sure it has
Right.
adequate clearance when it comes around and doesn't accidentally trip itself up on the stairs, which, as you know, we all tend to do that because you know, we have to teach yourself
Yep.
every now and then that, oh, that was a close call. Maybe I need to bring my feet up a bit
Right.
more, or when we're a bit
Right.
tired
Yeah.
going up, we're
Yeah.
not good.
Well, and again, that's the reason why I think a lot of people use railings if they're available, because if you do that, you catch yourself and you don't
Yeah,
go
you don't trust
right.
yourself enough, but I
Yeah.
would think
Yeah.
that, the Optimus, enough, it's going to know that this is the safe way of being able to do it, and it's never going to be kind of
Yeah.
lazy, but always do it what
Yeah.
is going to be
Yeah.
the safest.
Right. But you definitely notice that as it walks is that it's got that sort of it's like a semicircle that it's going to take the
Mhm.
foot up and out away from the stair.
Yeah, and the other
Yeah.
thing to remember that's a little bit different than the walking is that it's
Right.
going through a long period there where it's balanced on one foot.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, that's extensive.
That's the thing about walking.
And
Yeah,
of course, and it's lifting itself up too. So it's not just transferring,
at the
right? So
same
it's having
time,
to put
balanced
a
on one
lot
foot.
of torque onto to the motors in the other leg. So yeah, I mean that's a substantial amount of weight. You can see that it shifted its entire body over the planted foot. So yeah, very very cool. Also, I don't know if this is new or if I just hadn't seen it before, but that's obviously that sort of line between the black and the white on the back is where the charge port
Charging
goes
port is. Yeah,
into.
it was always like that.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Just I guess never really
We just
noticed it
never
because
really
it wasn't.
noticed that that's what was the whole
Yeah.
point of it because it was such a
Yeah.
super secret and how it charged.
So interesting. I don't know if they were just trying to hide that because they didn't want other people. I still think sitting down on it would have been really funny, but obviously that's not there's too much stuff going on here. The torso is the perfect place. It's close to the battery. It's close to the computer. It's
Everything
not a lot
about
of
it is good.
wiring.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
anyway, it's not inductive charging for a lot of reasons. One is that
Hmm.
inductive charging requires additional hardware on both sides, which means you're
Hmm.
adding more complexity and
It
more
also has
cost
a
and
lot of
more
heat,
burden.
and heat in a small form factor like
Heat
this would
and
be a
mass.
bad idea.
So you get the two
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah.
you get this mass
Yeah.
you're having to lug around the whole time just so
Right.
for the
Right.
occasionally inductive charging. So that's why it's
Right.
not there. It'll probably be a lot quicker just being able to plug it in. And there's a good chance that this will become some sort of charging standard for humanoid bots. I would not be
Yeah,
surprised.
that would be cool. North American bot standard, NABS instead
Yeah,
of NEX,
they put thought
or
into that.
world
They
world
put a
standard.
lot
Yeah.
of thought in. There's no doubt about it. So
It
it's not
also
just
acts as
something
a coat
they
hanger,
whipped up.
like you said, so it can
Yes.
take the weight. Obviously, you'd
Yeah.
mount it to a stud, but it would be able to take the,
Mhm.
130 or 40 pounds if the
Right.
power went out.
Right.
So
Right.
it's got a lot of advantages, mechanical advantages as well as charging. And of course, people are like, "Oh, well, it can't wirelessly charge." It doesn't matter because it plugs itself in. You don't have to worry about it. When
Right.
Optimus needs to plug in, it plugs itself in. It's not like
And
it
the
goes like,
place that it
"Help
plugs
me."
in is it doesn't take up a whole lot of space, and there's no
No, no,
charging cable that's coming around.
no.
So
Yeah,
there's not this
exactly.
idea that you're going to
Beautiful.
have these cables. It's got to grab the cable. It's got to like plug itself in there. It's like, no, why do you need the cable? Just back into the
Right.
thing. Boom. That's it. So it's
Yeah,
it's an
exactly.
elegant, really good solution. It's clear they thought this through. I mean, they really thought it through, and I
Right.
think they had a lot of
Yeah.
discussions and everything else. And like, oh, we can just plug in with a wire like we do everything else. And someone says, why? Why do we need a wire? I mean, wires
Yeah,
are
exactly.
expensive. You trip over it, it gets
Exactly.
fallen, it's broken. Let's come up with something else. The other thing about it is that it's probably designed that when people are walking around there, it's not going to be something that they bump into and get hurt.
Exactly. Yeah. There is what obviously is a piece of metal sticking out because it's gotta be strong enough to support the bot, but
Support it, but it
it's
seems
pretty
like it's
unlikely that that's
yeah,
going.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's coated around there.
Yeah.
I think it's enough that you don't have to worry about
Yeah.
anything. It's probably
Right.
okay. It's not. It's at a kind of level that it's not going to really hurt you. It's going to be like mid torso
Yeah.
level for most people. It's not going
Yeah.
to be
Like,
something
it
that you
would
can run
hit you
into
in
it,
the arm maybe or something like
and
that.
you're going to
Yeah, so it
notice it
wouldn't be
when you
wouldn't
go
be
by.
terrible.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we have things sticking out all over our houses. We have like cabinet
We have coat
knobs and
hangers
things like
hanging
that.
out all over the place. So that's
Yeah,
basically
coat
what it is,
hangers,
just
yeah.
a coat hanger.
Yeah. So I mean, we're good at that. You might bump into
But a
it
coat
once or
yeah,
something,
yeah.
but you're not going to
Mhm.
do it twice. So yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's I think the entire thing. Did you have some stuff on Camtasia that you wanted to show that are
No,
more
no,
like
that
blow
was
ups
it.
or
It was just that if we
okay.
wanted to go
Yeah.
through one step at a time, but
Yeah.
no,
Okay.
that's basically the video. And once again, I
Okay. Then.
I've done so many hot takes on it. We wanted more or less your
Right.
impressions of what you saw.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this all weirdly enough, this is very coincidental because I'd been planning to do this video for a week now, but I think it's really perfect timing because this just increases my confidence that this robot is going to fit in to a factory, a house, whatever, a restaurant, wherever this thing is, humans are going to react very positively to this. I don't think there's going to be this weird transition period. I feel like full self-driving in a car is substantially harder than the robot. And maybe you'll disagree with me, but the car I grew up and it's like I'm driving. I'm in the left-hand seat with the steering wheel. This is my car. And to give that up is really difficult. But I am used to, it's not like I'm inhabiting the body of this thing, it's moving around for me. It's like I'm used to talking to you in person, right? Or my wife, or my kids, or my students, or whatever. It's just like I'm used to other bodies in space. And so it feels completely natural to
We're,
interact with
we're,
this thing as a
we're
body in space.
yeah, and we're also used to having this interaction remotely now. Before, no one wanted
Yeah,
to do that.
exactly.
It just
Right,
there
right,
was like a generation that, okay, we'll talk a
mhm,
little bit on the phone about this and that, but in the end, we got to meet, which
right,
means one or the other of us has to fly somewhere or something like that. And
right,
then when
right,
you start to have the online meetings, it was like, we're not sure. Online training classes, no, everything's got to be in person. But that's finally kind of
right,
transition that everyone's accepting that. So
yeah,
it's the same sort of thing that you're talking about. Is like we're used to having this interaction, but you're not really here. I'm not really there.
right,
And the same thing with the bot. It's like almost the same thing. It's like, well, we're used kind of these interactions
yeah.
with a
Well,
machine in a way
here's a
because I'm
here's a
interacting not
here's
with
a
you. I'm
use
interacting
case,
with this machine.
right. Here's a use case I hadn't really thought about, but we could have let's say I have an Optimus and you have an Optimus, and you live in Florida and I
Hmm.
live in Georgia. We could have avatar-based conversations where you could inhabit the body of my Optimus, not necessarily to, like, punch me or something, but to
Yeah,
talk to
yeah.
me, but, and then so we could actually have an
Well, that
in-person
would be weird if
conversation.
I could kind of
I
telerobotically
I
control
know.
it. So yeah, I
Well,
could go over. I
it's
could
we
sit in your
already no,
favorite
I mean, look at
chair, lean
yeah,
back.
exactly.
Wayne, get me a beer.
Yeah, it's like, "Don't I can't have a beer." But, but no, but I'm thinking because of the way that they were teleoperating the bots at the event, at the We Robot event, and it was fine. And the voice of the operator was coming out, and it's like, yeah, that would work. If it was like Scott inhabiting the robot for a while, and maybe it had like a little green color around it or something to indicate that it was being, especially right now, I don't think they have a screen, but if they had a little screen, it'd be really creepy having your face in
Oh, that'd
there.
be
But
kind of it'd be
but
almost like the
yeah,
AVP. But at
yeah,
the same time, I'd have to put on a headset. That way, I could see myself navigating through your house, and you could show everything in
oh
person.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah.
And I
But I
can
mean, so something
go over
along the
here,
lines
and
of an yeah. But like, the Google or the Meta glasses, the Meta Ray-Ban glasses or the Apple Visions or something like that, that if you put that on, you could control the bot. That would be it's an interesting way of having presence and not being present. That would be a really interesting
mhm.
man. I mean, think about long distance relationships between couples. That would be, I don't know. I don't want to get creepy or anything, but it would be
Don't
nice,
get
to
down.
have a
No,
feeling
let's
of
not
like,
go down that.
let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's just keep that. Let's keep that apart. We'll stick to professional meetings and stuff. But it is a really interesting possibility. I hadn't really thought of it until right this second as you were talking about it. But whatever it is, I really am a very strongly of the opinion that these bots are going to slot into human society perhaps too easily. I think people might just find them more comfortable to talk to than humans at some point.
Oh yeah,
That they're
yeah.
just like, people have I don't know. I've been working with voice AI all day long with voice agents and like programming it and prompting it and I keep going like, you're screwing up, you're doing a terrible job, and it's like, oh, I apologize, I'm so sorry. It's like a human would be ready to smack me upside the face after an hour of this. So you know, so these things are very much kinder than we are. So I guess there's
Yeah,
always
very
that part of
very
it too.
patient. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, cool. Well, anything else? We've covered quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, I think we did. I don't know of anything
Okay.
else. Did we ever talk about the hand together? I've talked to so many people about the new
Yes,
hand.
yes, we did. We did the Vulcan thing. We did a whole episode about that,
Oh, we
while I
did a
was
whole.
still in
See,
college.
I can't
Yeah.
remember because there's so many, and I don't
Yeah, I
know
think we were
if
I think we were the first on that. So I might be the last on this, but we were the first on the hand. So
okay. So we got into
so yeah, yeah,
quick, and then
yeah.
but Elon did in his post today say that they showed the 22 Doff hand. So like confirmation that was the hand. Confirmation that they still think it's 22 Doff, even though I still think it's 23. Uh, the only thing this is the thing I'm wondering is the mistake I might be making is somehow incorporate the wrist axes into the 22. But it makes sense because they've integrated the
Mm,
actuators into
mm,
the forearm. So it all seems like it's part of that, and whether you want to count those two. And we're not counting the third one. The one that does this is not like part of that group. It's sort of separate from the forearm that allows the whole
right,
forearm to rotate.
right.
So assuming that, that's
Yeah,
how I'm kind of getting to it. But if they're saying that, oh no, it's not actually in there. So that means your calculation
right,
of all the knuckles and everything gets you up to 20. And then there's like another two that are popping out of nowhere. And one of them seems to be that crease underneath the pinky or the palm. And maybe
mhm,
there's another one
for
that we're
sure.
not seeing there that adds one. So maybe that's where I'm getting it wrong. At some point, they're going to come clean and please, like, tell us how you're defining 22 DOF. Because again, if you ask
Right,
biomechanics how many degrees of freedom a human hand has, you will get different answers because some of them count only part of the wrist, all the wrist, the positioning of the wrist is like, well, that's not a degree of freedom. I mean, that's the way we think
yeah,
of it.
exactly.
So, and then you can talk to a hand surgeon, and a hand surgeon will tell you, 25 times. Are you kidding? There's way more, way, and a much
Right,
larger. So we have to figure out exactly how they're defining all the different degrees of freedom. But I'm pretty sure that they have four for every single digit. So they have all the full knuckles, and then the
right.
abduction movement that's going on there, and then they've added at least. Did they add one on the palm? It looks like it.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Then the
so.
number of
I think it is.
actuators is also a big one, which we
Right.
that's right. We
Sorry,
figured that out. We figured
I was
16.
trying to
Yeah.
find the hand, but I found the robot, with the cowboy outfit instead, but you can see that, so just to show that. I don't know why I can't find a picture of the Gen 3 hand, like, online anywhere right now,
Yeah.
but anyway, so
And
just
actually, if
pop that
if
up
if
quick.
you look
But
at the shirt, you can see that there's holes in the shirt right underneath the armpit. And
yep,
I'll tell
yep,
you, like,
yep.
I'd like a shirt with vent openings like that as well.
I know. It'd
Sometimes
be nice for Florida, right?
help.
In Florida,
Yes, yes, exactly. Help you cool down in there a little bit.
exactly. But I still think it's pretty magical that they were able to put a hat on, even if it's above where the cameras are. It changes the entire field of view because you have like that shadow of the hat around that you can see with the
Mhm.
camera, which means you can't see the space above you, which changes everything. So it's very cool that it's able to be that flexible to do that. But this is awesome. I mean, look at that, handing a guy a drink. It's pretty
Mhm.
awesome. So yeah. Anyway. So, yep, I'll throw a link to the hand video so people can find it if they want to. But all right, that is amazing. Thank you so much for spending some time. And now it's like 9 o'clock at night, so
Yeah.
we got
And
to go
the
to
the
bed
only
so
other
I can
thing
get
we
up in the morning
never
and work
talked
tomorrow.
about, John, was, you know,
Yeah.
IFT 5.
Oh my gosh, did we not talk about that yet? That was how
Yeah.
was that? How was okay, bonus material. How was seeing that in person? Because I'm very jealous that I did not see it. I didn't think it was gonna happen. I was like, there's no point in going to South Padre, this weekend because it'll be pushed off by a week or two. But
Well,
shoot,
as
man,
everyone
and the
knows,
weather
I
was
I had
great.
I had I had plenty of time because well, I did have a home to come back to. I didn't have a home to come back to with like
Yeah,
water and electricity and everything. Well, I did have electricity and I did have internet, but my neighbors, they're talking like October 26th is when they'll have internet back. So the next time people joke
oof,
about why do you have Starlink, it's like
oof.
my neighbors have not had
Ah,
internet connectivity for about a
uh-huh,
month. And even up
uh-huh.
in Tampa, where my son was staying, he did not have it. He had to use a hotspot. He decided to come down and visit dear old dad because he needed to have the
Wow.
Starlink. So so basically,
Jeez.
since I was going to be a hotel vagabond, I could have been like a hotel vagabond in Sarasota, taking away valuable hotel space from people who desperately needed it, or just like kind of stay away. So when the event was over,
Right.
rather than flying back into a disaster area, I said, well, why not go down to South Padre Island, hang out there until the launch is done. It's delayed a few days. I don't care. And of course,
Yeah.
it went off and Josh West came down, and he got there.
Yeah.
He's got a
Cool.
good setup in his Model Y. He's got a really good bed. He just, they keep on saying, no one wants to buy a 2-seater. And Josh West has actually a 2-seater because he's
Right.
got like a permanent bed in the back because he's always traveling around and needs a place to
Yeah.
sleep. So he came down, was able to sleep on
Exactly.
that, and then came out. He live streamed. I live stream, and it's something else. So he put together a really good video of his experience. You can see kind of my experience on an X live stream that I did, and the Starlink Mini was the only way we could get it to work because there were so many people there. The 5G network was down. I mean, forget about being able to watch the live stream on SpaceX. You just had to watch. Of course, you weren't there to watch the live stream, just that someone would get you the countdown to say it's T-minus 30 and get your cameras ready. So it was magical. And you want to see his because, of course, SpaceX had great shots, much better shots, good cameras.
Right.
But you really get the feel of what it was like to be around the crowd, what you can expect to see when you go down there. There's a lot of viewing locations. You can go out in a boat. You can go to Rocket Ranch. You can watch from Port Isabel. You can get in a condominium up high. But South Padre Island, the Isla Blanca is really easy to get into. If you're staying on the island, it's great. Walk to it. Don't drive to it because it takes forever to get in and out. And they charge you, I think, $20 cash only. So you got to have that. And it will take a while to get on it. But once you're down there, you have a really good view. The boats will be a little bit closer, but someone who was on a boat said that, he's actually a cameraman. The problem is the boats just are not still. So he couldn't really get his shots right. Even if it wasn't wavy, the boats just naturally are kind of always changing their position a little bit. So it's really hard to get that. So there may be some others that are a little bit better. The condominiums, when you get in the condominiums, you're a mile or two further away. So you might be up higher, but you're further away. So it's like, nah, just go right on down there. It's really easy. Don't be scared off by the fact that there's going to be big crowds. You'll be able to get in there. You'll be able to get there. And it's just worth it because you have a clear view of it. You're closer than you can get to any launches at the Cape for both the launch and the landing. So you feel it.
And this thing is huge. This thing is huge.
Yes. And you're so much closer. So it really looks bigger. It really pops out.
Wow.
And it really makes a roar. And there's no doubt about it that everyone came away from that having really been moved by what they saw.
Oh, cool. Very cool. And I mean, you don't have to wait that long for the landing. That was about from launch to landing was about 6.5 minutes, right? It was back down real fast.
Yeah. I think it's like 7 minutes, I think total was like that was it. And so this is just a show going off. And the first thing that's impressive is that thing is taking off. There. Yeah. Yes. So that thing is taking off and there's all these flames and it keeps on going up and the flames just keep getting longer and longer and longer. That thing is 400 feet tall and the flames are about 2.5 times that length. So it's like a 1,000-foot column of flame that it is riding on top of going up there.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that is a lot.
Yeah. It really looks like it's physically impossible because it's so tall and so thin, even though it's as big as it is, that it just looks like it's going to crush or break apart or start spinning. Like there's just no way that you could balance it like that and have it just maintain the stability it needs. But I mean, obviously they do. So it's
and
crazy.
then the accuracy of the landing is something else. Of course, it comes in like it's like, what's it doing? Does it even know what it is doing coming on in there? And that seems to be the ideal way of coming in. And you can see it just drops those pins exactly the way it has to, very gently on down there. Just amazing engineering feat to watch that. And then afterwards, just seeing it hanging there. And then no one wanted to leave the beach at that point. They're just sitting there, just looking at that thing, looking at it. And so the show kind of continued on. And then, of course, most people were sitting there. And it's like, oh, guess what? There's still something happening half world way. Forget about the other part.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, just look at that. I mean, look how long that column of flame is. And look at the length of the whole booster itself. And it was
this booster, what did you say? Is it 400?
400 feet.
What's the height of it?
Yeah, 400.
So that's
400 feet.
At the top. And then this thing is, like you said, 2 or 3 times larger.
Yeah, exactly. Now,
crazy how big
it was a perfect viewing conditions. And that you had, the perfect blue sky, not a blemish in it. And then you have this man-made cloud that's made at a certain level. and the sun was just coming up. And at one point, the sun hits it, and it just has this golden glow on it. And then, of course,
Wow.
it kind of retraces the steps and ends up going through this man-made
Yeah, I saw
cloud,
that. I saw
popping
that.
out the other
That's
end, and
cool.
then you get the contrail of it coming down. The contrail was incredible because you extrapolate it and it goes right down to the tower. So you didn't have to find
Yeah.
out, oh, are they going to return? Are they going to attempt to do the return? You were looking at that. It's
It
like,
was like a
it's
big arrow.
going back.
It's like, dang.
It's going back. And I heard someone shout, it's like, yeah, they're saying they're going for it. They're going for it. They get clearance for the tower.
Right, right. It's just incredible. It is pretty remarkable to think that all that happened
Do
in
you know what
7
the
minutes.
pad crew has to do? Because everyone thinks it's like their job is over once the rocket launches. And it's like, well, it used to be that
Yeah.
way. But now,
Yeah,
as soon as it
not
goes,
anymore.
they have 300 seconds to make the call that the pad is
Mhm.
operational. So they have 300
Wow.
seconds to go through, verify everything is working, that the chopsticks are going, that there's been no damage as a result of the launch. And it seems like they were actually early. So 300 seconds is 5 minutes. And it looks like the
Yeah,
call
5
out at
minutes.
4 minutes, they said, we're
Right.
clear. We're ready to go.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. That's
Otherwise, they're
remarkable.
ditching in the ocean.
Yeah, yeah. But and again, the good thing is it's coming in like sideways, so
Yeah.
it's not coming straight down. So if even with 20 seconds left, they could call it and they could just tip the grid fins and spin it, and it would crash into the ocean instead of.
Yeah. Either
But it would
crash
be not
close to the
great.
ocean
It would
or
be,
crash right on the kind of
yeah,
the marshlands, right? They would be very
right.
careful because if they kind of go
Right.
over where the bird nesting area is, people won't be very happy. So I'm not sure
They'll get in
how
big
much they
trouble.
could ditch
Yeah,
away from it, but it was very
right.
clear that it kind of came down, made sure it came to a complete stop. And then at that point, whoop,
Right.
did that diagonal in. Just an amazing
Yeah.
maneuver to see how that all worked and how
It
coordinated it
is. It
was.
is. Yeah, and I think it's also important. Like I think it was either 5 or 50 tons of fuel they estimated that it had left. So they really, really were very conservative with their margins. So in
Mhm.
this case, if the thing had come down even down to like where it is right here in this picture, that they could have been like, oh, bail, 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 and they could have taken off and shot out,
Oh yeah, they would have definitely
a mile
had
or two
enough
offshore. Yeah, yeah,
probably
yeah.
if they had to. Yeah. So eventually they'll probably get that down. And that's also
Oh
why
yeah,
you probably saw a lot of belching when it came down. So it was either
right,
purging of
right,
some of the lines or getting rid of
right.
some of the excess fuel, because once it was done, it seemed like there was like a huge burst of flame. And we were all kind of
Yeah,
wondering, oh no, is the thing running? And it looks like it was, just
yeah.
continual venting.
Yeah. Yeah, they started venting out the top. There was actually, where the methane is, connected
Yep.
to the, whatever, the filler. Anyway, it was venting out of there, but then they vented a ton out the top, but they had so much fuel left that it took a long time to vent it out. So, which is great.
Hmm.
They wanted that, but they also ejected the interstage ring, the hot staging ring. So clearly,
Right.
they can start to improve their margins now that they know they can do that, and they can
Right.
maybe it was very
Right.
cool watching the hot stage ring just spinning away from the other part as it was coming down, because they were very much together for most of it.
Yeah, yeah,
So
you would expect that. Because we couldn't see where we were. I guess you'd have to go to the live stream to be able to see that.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it was
so
pretty small.
obviously you don't want to have that, otherwise it's not fully reusable, and
Right.
that's just part of the.
Exactly.
It wasn't part of the Block One design, and
Right.
so that meant the calculations for the fuel and the center of mass are completely off. The next one is
Right.
going to be actually integrated in the design for Block Two,
Right.
and I think they
Right.
have maybe just one booster left from Block One.
I think
I'm not
so.
sure how many more.
Yeah.
I know they have one ready to go. I'm not sure how many are on the production line or where they're already
Right.
getting ready for the Block 2 production.
Right. And so so here's a question for you. What are they going to do with their next launch? Because it seems like they've now done the half orbital flight landing in the Indian Ocean. But they have to request if they want to do a different flight plan to the FAA. I don't think they have to make a request if they want to just do the same thing again. Is it worthwhile
If
for
they
them
want
to
to do
do
the
the
same
same launch
thing,
again?
yeah, I don't know if they have to make a modification if they actually want to go into orbit. The
Yeah,
reason I haven't gone into orbit in case they can't do a restart of the Raptors,
hmm
that
exactly.
which would be needed to be able to do a reentry. You want to do something, but they could probably go into an orbit that might be able to decay pretty quickly on its own if something
Yeah,
was to go wrong.
yeah,
So the first thing, of course, is that you need an orbital insertion burn to go ahead and make
right.
sure that you really are in orbit
Well, they could
to go
do it,
for
but
that.
not quite circular. I guess Yeah, I mean, I guess
Yeah, yeah. You
they
can
can
have it dipping down low enough.
leave the
You can have,
parachute very, very low. Yeah,
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 you can make
yeah.
sure that it's within a certain period of time, maybe a week or 2 weeks, it's just going to naturally degrade. But
Right,
they could go into that to
right,
get a little bit of test data out of it, maybe even use
right.
it to deploy a payload, and then probably try to return to the Gulf.
Oh, yeah,
And the question is like
yeah.
how many orbits they would need to do that, because if you put it
It
directly
takes a
into an
while for it
orbit,
to
the
like,
Earth has
yeah,
rotated at that
yeah,
point, over 1,000 miles, since
yeah,
it's like 90
yeah.
minutes to go around. Yeah, so it's probably close to so that means you got to go 1,000
Right,
miles west. That's where it's kind of going over, and you'd have to have multiple orbits before it sort of is coming back over the Gulf again to be able to do a return there. And I assume they'd want to
right,
do that just because it'd be a lot. Because at some point they have to figure out how to bring it back to Boca Chica, right? So
right.
you want to go
Exactly.
ahead and do that if you're going to do it, and then do a test off the coast, out where they had the buoys before, and
Right.
then I assume maybe not sink it, maybe actually try to recover it.
Yeah. Right.
Just go ahead and do the
Well,
burn
if they,
and tow it,
yeah, I
because
mean, if they could land it, well, they could also land it in the Atlantic and have one of their tugs that they have out there, like "Of Course I Still Love You" or something. So they could land it
they could do it. But
approximately where they
remember,
land their Falcon 9s.
I'm not sure what was the point of IFT4 that it
Mhm.
usually they do these charges because they want the thing to sink. And then they go out with a
Right.
salvage
Right.
vessel and recover it anyway. It's like, well, wait a minute, just let the darn thing
Yeah.
float and tow it back in if you can. And it seems like there would be
Right.
some way of being
Right.
able to do it without going to that extent. So yeah,
Yeah.
why not? Is like, they should be able to get some ships
Yeah.
out there to be able to recover it and then
Right.
get a lot of valuable data. Before they
Right.
go, I think
I
they
mean,
want to
clearly it landed extremely accurately, like because they were able to see it from the buoy that they had set up to like look at it. So, and it was right
yeah,
there. So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So they were there, and so hopefully the FAA is no problem if they're going to do a modification. The only reason for them to do a redo of IFT5, exact same profile, is that they want to make
Right.
some more upgrades to the heat shielding to make sure it's a little bit better coming down, because I think there was a little bit of compromise in there. Not much,
Right.
but they've made a lot of progress. And then also the
Yeah.
looks like the engines were glowing coming down from reentry. So did you see how
Yeah, they
hot
were
those
really
things
hot.
were coming in? Because I
They were
thought it's like,
really hot.
did they just do a burn? Because the one thing you got to
Right.
remember that's different than a Falcon 9 is that the Falcon 9, you have the boost back, and then you have a
Yeah,
reentry burn to slow it down, and then you
exactly.
have the
And they're
landing
not
burn.
doing that
This
reentry
has
burn with
no
this.
reentry
Yeah.
burn. So
This sucker's
Elon said
coming in
it's a simple
fast.
fix, and it might be the simple fix is that maybe we have to do a reentry burn. Or we had to
Right.
figure out some way to make sure that we're not getting such excess heating on the way down. So it's ironic that
Right.
the way to keep the engines from getting too hot is to actually light them on fire to, slow, to
Yeah,
slow it down
I
a little
know.
bit when it comes in. So that's something that they're
Pretty
either
crazy.
going to figure out some material change or something else in their procedure, or they
Right.
may realize that we still need that reentry burn to slow it down enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think with
Just
the
to add
Falcon,
one
the
more
reason they
beautiful
did it is
picture.
the Falcon is aluminum, so it
Yeah.
was definitely going to overheat.
Oh, it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't have the capability,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
plus the fact they never built the engines. The rocket engines aren't designed to take that kind of
aren't designed
heat
for it.
and
But
reentry and
the stainless
burn. So,
steel,
yeah,
had, obviously it had no problem with their reentry heating. It's just a
yeah,
question of whether the
yeah.
engines could handle it.
I just wanted to bring this up because it's so pretty. This is like, this is the Starship, the upper stage, obviously re-entering the upper atmosphere, and just beautiful. It's
Yeah,
really beautiful. Looks like a painting. So,
I know. I'm
yeah,
looking at that, and I
so
can't believe
yeah,
that's reality.
I know, right? And it's really weird too when it comes in the upper atmosphere because it's not turbulent. There's so little air that it's exactly still, and all of the like the airwaves and stuff. So it looks like it's just a still frame picture. It doesn't look like it's actually moving, and yet it's
Hmm.
screaming down at 25,000 kilometers an hour or so. But it looks absolutely beautiful. So yeah, all right. Awesome. That was a good extra bonus. I hadn't even thought about that, but certainly it was quite the weekend, quite the week for Elon Musk, I think, to having all this stuff happen all together, but glad we could be part of it. All right. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. And yeah, let us know what you guys think in the comments. And if you were there at either We Robot or at the IFT5 flight, let us know. And we'd love to hear from you. And in the meantime, we'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.